Hello people of the internet, my name is Salmon Pie, and today I will be going over and analyzing some of the teams from the newest Minecraft Championship, MCC15, which will be taking place in a few days. So overall, I'll just be going over some of the strengths and weaknesses of the team, and what games I think they'll be good at. So one interesting thing to go over is the new games. So far in MCC14, there have been 8 games available to choose from, or determine which order they'll be played in. For this newest MCC, there will be a 9th game added to the roster, which will be interesting, and determine how some teams do, and I'll be talking about that later. So the possible options for this game are theorized to be, first, Rocket Spleef, essentially fly around. This game's been around for a while, and is pretty good for teams like the Hermits and Philza and Fundy. Next game is Sands of Time, and this is good for more team-based teams, and you explore a dungeon, collect coins, fight mobs, and some really good players at this are Pete and Dream. Now this third game could be Bingo but fast, and this is another team game where you try to gather resources from the world, and this will be good for, teams that have good communication together. Now this next game is Grid Runners, and it's been theorized to be the new MCC game that will be coming in Season 2. Now we haven't seen any of this or how it will work, but it's based off of a Nox Crew game called Grid Runners, where you try to make your way through rooms where you complete different puzzles, and it will probably be a team-based game. Finally, Parkour Warrior could be coming back. Now I think this is more unlikely than some of the other options, but there's still a chance as it has been confirmed to return in the future by members of the Nox Crew. Now jumping into the teams, the first team we have is the Red Rabbits with Dream, Michael, Quackity, and Sapnap. Now the first thing that pops out about this team is the strong duo at the top, Dream and Sapnap, which are both really strong players. If both of them perform to the best of their ability, they can take this team really far. Overall, they're really good at PvP, especially if Dream and Sapnap can both pop off, and that would take this team to good heights with Battlebox and Sky Battle. In terms of weaknesses, probably Build Mart and Hole in the Wall, as none of the players on this team are particularly great at those two games. In terms of new games, Parkour Warrior or Sands of Time being brought back would be great for this team, as Dream and Sapnap are both amazing at both of those games. The second team we have is the Orange Ocelots with Pearl, Green, Pete, and Shovel. In terms of this team, it has a lot of good communication, with Pearl and Green being good friends, and overall all of them being really good with team games and communicating with each other. Their best games are probably going to be Hole in the Wall and Build Mart. With Hole in the Wall, Pearl, Shovel, and Pete are all excellent at the game, and with Build Mart, this team is basically built for it. Pete, Green, and Pearl are all amazing builders, and Shovel has great communications as a runner, so I think they will do really well in that game. In terms of their weaknesses, they might not do as well in PvP games, but honestly, if they communicate well with each other and have good strategy, I can see them doing pretty well. Finally, new games that would be good would be Rocket Spleef and Sands of Time. In Sands of Time, Green and Pete have been teamed together a few times. MCC13 it didn't go amazingly as Green got locked in, and MCC14 we got scammed out of Sands of Time. But if it does get brought back, I feel like this duo could do really well in that game this time. With Rocket Spleef, this team is just overall really strong at that game. Now the third team we have is the Yellow Yaks with Captain Sparkles, Puns, Jack, and CPK. And Jack is relatively new to MCC, but the other 3 are pretty experienced. Now, this is interesting. How will Puns do? He hasn't been playing in MCC that long, with only 3 MCCs under his belt, but he has scored really high, getting a 2nd place, thanks to a really favorable survival games, as well as popping off in other games throughout MCC 14. Overall, I think if he does really well, that would be really good for this team, but I'm not sure how he will do, as we don't have much data on him so far. Their best games will probably be a mix of To Get to the Other Side, Battlebox, and Parkour Tag, as that is where their team strengths mix together the most, as well as Jack being really good at To Get to the Other Side and Parkour Tag, relative to his placement in MCC 14. In terms of their weaknesses, probably Build Mart and Hole in the Wall, as none of the team members excel at that game, and moving on. So this next team here is the Lime Llamas, with the Orion Sounds, Mr. Gaming, Cara Corvus, and Fruit Berries. And overall, this team doesn't seem like a super huge competitive team, but I still think that they have a few games they can pop off in, and if they do so, they will do pretty well overall. So their best game will probably be Build Mart, as this team is very team game oriented, and their weakness might be PvP, but I do see them being able to do well in these games if they have good communication, stick together, and fruit pops off in those games. Now the second green team is one that I think has a lot of potential. You have Connor Eats Pants, Fundy, Phil, and Tommy. And one thing to point out is that this team has a really scary trio. You got Pilza, Tommy, and Fundy, who are all very good top 10 players. And in terms of movement, this trio will be super good at all the movement games. Now, in terms of how Connor will do, we've only seen him once in MCC11, and from what we've seen, his best games have been movement games, so I think that will complement the team pretty well. And since then, he's probably improved in skills as a Minecraft player, and will be trying harder in this event. Their best games will probably be all the movement ones. This team will be good at parkour tag, ace race to get to the other side, just because they have this really strong trio at the top. Their weaknesses will probably be PvP. I know that Tommy is good at PvP, and Phil can support him pretty well, but it also comes down to how well Fundy and Connor can do in those situations. Finally, in terms of new games, Rocket Spleets being added would be really good for this game, as both Phil and Fundy are top 5 players in that game. Tommy has shown that he can hold his own, and that was Connor's best game in MCC11. Now, going into the blue teams, we have the Aqua Axolotls, which I am really excited about. When I first saw this team, I was pagging so much. You know why? We have back the dynamic duo, the two bros, absolute Chad lads. You got Piss Boy Dave and Ryan Krinios. Oh my gosh, this duo. I cannot believe that Scott brought it back. I am very happy about this. Besides that, this team is pretty good. It doesn't seem as powerful as some of the other ones in the event, but their best games will probably be parkour tag and maybe battle box depending on how the members do. In terms of parkour tag, Sylvia is shown to be a pretty good hunter, and both Krinios and Dave are really good at the game. In terms of their weaknesses, I want to say that build mart could be a weakness, but I'm still thinking over that, seeing as half of the team that won build mart in MCC14 this year, plus Krinios has shown to be really good in the game. Now next up we have the Cyan Creepers, with Scott, Wisp, Antfrost, and 5UP. And something interesting is that this team is basically half new players. You have Radish Boy and Cat Boy, who are both new to the event. Overall, they have been doing a lot of practice, so I think that will help them some, but we've also seen from Skeppy and Bad Boy Halo that practice doesn't mean everything within the event, and that preparation doesn't guarantee a high placement. Overall, I think 5UP's best game will probably be PvP, most specifically Battle Box, and Antfrost will be good at movement, maybe parkour tag. The best games of this team will probably be parkour tag and Battle Box, as those are where 5UP and Ant's skills synergize most with Scott and Wisps, and their weaknesses might be something. I want to say that they'll probably not be great at team games, but overall with new players, it's hard to predict that. So our final blue team is the Blue Bats, with Whip, Quig, Joel, and Preston, and I kind of have a lot to say about this team because I think it's really interesting. So the first big thing is Preston. Preston is in MCC. Oh my gosh, it's Presto Plays. Now, in terms of what his skills will be, he'll probably be best at movement games, as he was well known for parkour back in the day. But there's a big question to be asked. Will he be a parkour god, or will he be rusty? Now, since when he used to be big and well known for his parkour content, there has been a long period of time, but he's also kept playing Minecraft since then. Overall, I'm not sure, and I think we'll see on the actual day of the MCC how much he's improved or how well he does in terms of his skills. Now, the second big thing I was thinking is, oh my gosh, was Scott Smager smoking Scottish crack when he made this team? Because this team seems really cracked just like that crack. Now, what you've got is the MCC8 Aqua Axolotls, which were absolutely cracked out of their minds. You got, 3 players in the top 10, they beat out freaking Techno and Dream's team by 4,000 points, and got first place in all of the team games, with like a huge dominating lead over everyone else. So you essentially take that team, mop out H-Bomb, and replace him with Presto Plays, who's probably really good at the game. Now thinking about it more, this team actually doesn't seem as overpowered as I originally thought. So for one, you're converting from H-Bomb to Preston, and it's Preston's first event. So I'm not sure how that player change will affect this team. The second thing is also pretty important. There are less team games now. So far, there is only Build Mart, and there's not even a guarantee that a new team game will be added this event. Even if it is, there will only be 2 games without a guarantee of both being played. Finally, there is steeper competition than there was in MCC8. There are other strong teams, especially those in team games, and it won't be as easy for them to dominate the competition as it was in MCC8. Overall, their best game is probably Build Mart. I mean, definitely Build Mart. I think this team will do very, very well in that. Their weaknesses might be something. I'm not sure what weaknesses they have. They seem really solid at PvP and movement, although not the strongest in either of those categories. Finally, new games. Bingo would be absolutely amazing for this team. Basically, you have 3 bingo gods at the top with Quig, Whip, and Joel. And Preston has shown that he can be pretty good at bingo, as well as have good communications with the rest of the team. Sands of Time would also be good for this game, and I tentatively want to say that this team would be pretty good at the new Grid Runners game, but that's a team-based game, and this team is basically cracked at those. So the second to last team we have here is the Purple Pandas, with Rendog, Martin, False, and Illumina. And this team is pretty interesting. It shares a similar format to some other teams you've seen, like the MCC14 Lime Llamas, MCC14 Purple Pandas, MCC11 Lime Liches, and MCC13 Purple Penguins, essentially with an S-tier being teamed with some other support players like the Hermits. So, with this team, we can see Illumina being put in a role similar to players like Fruit, Pete, and Quig, being tasked with leading the team and bringing in most of the points from the top, but having good strong support under him. So it will be an interesting test of how he does in this role, and how he will be ranked in the future. Overall, their best games will probably be Buildmore, and depending on the maps, I can see them doing well and to get to the other side. And their weaknesses might be PvP, but I can also see them popping off in games like survival games and Battle Box. In terms of new games, Rocket Spleef would be really good for this team, as expected from a Hermit team. Now the final team we have to go over is the Pink Parrots. You got Tapple, Wilbur, Tubbo, and Rambo. Oh my gosh, Rambo's in MCC. This is very exciting news. Time for my official predictions on this team. Best games will probably be something. They'll do good at something. In terms of placement, 10th.